Alright YouTube, in this video I'm going to show you how to create CRUD project using Laravel 8. So as you can see on the screen, so this is a project which we have created using Laravel 8. So in this project I want to create a project. I want to create a to-do list. That means if I click on create to-do, it will ask me to add the to-do. So that let's add a to-do for create to-do project. So if I click on save, I'm intentionally making this mistake. If I click on save, if you see, this is the to-do which is added at this particular date, so that is available. So you can add, so let's delete it. I want to delete this to CRUD, so it is deleted. And in case I want to edit this, click on save, create to-do project YouTube. So now you can see we can add just by clicking on create to-do. We can edit, we can delete. This is what we have edited. Now let's delete this. We can delete and we can view all the list. So we have created this with the help of Laravel 8. So to follow along, I have left the source code in the description, and these are the steps which we are going to follow in this current project. Fine, now let's get started. The very first thing what we need to do is we need to create a project. So this is already running, so let me press Ctrl C to quit, and let me create cd dot dot. So inside this Laravel project, inside the Laravel folder which is on my XAMPP, I have already XAMPP inside it. Inside htdocs, inside Laravel folder, we are going to create a project over here. So to create a project, we need the code. So this code is already available on internet. So here we have to specify the project name, CRUD Laravel 8. So just follow this and paste it, click enter, and it will create a folder for yourself. At present you can see the folder is created, and now the data would be populated. The following files, the required files for Laravel project, will be populated on this particular folder. Now let me create a table. So I have already created a database. If you see YouTube tut, so this database I would be using. So let me save it in my notepad so that I don't have to copy paste again and again. So let me pause it and show you once it's done. So to run this project, what you need is you need a XAMPP which comes with Apache server and MySQL database, along with the composer which you have to download it to continue with this project. Fine, now let's see. I think it's still installing. Let me pause it and wait for the installation to complete. And now if you see, the installation is complete. So if you look at the folder, this is Laravel 8. So let's open this Laravel 8 CRUD project in our Visual Studio Code. Open. So let me open this, select folder. So let's see the welcome screen. How does it looks? So to see the welcome screen, what you have to do is you have to get into the project which you have created it right now, and you have to write php artisan serve. So by running this command, you will get a port number. In that port number, your particular project will be running. So this is the project which we have installed fresh right now. So let's see where this file is coming from. So if you see in any website, the slash will refer to the index page. So this is the index page which is referred as slash. So we have a concept called routes. If you get into the folder called routes in the web.php, you will see this slash is referring to a file called welcome, and this welcome file you will get at the resources folder. Inside resources we have views, inside views we have welcome.php. So as I said, first Lara will get into the web.php file and it will look for the URL. So as I said, in this case the slash is a URL. The slash URL is referring to the welcome file. So Laravel will find the file. The file will be on the resource folder Inside the resource folder we have views folder. Inside views we have welcome.php. So this is the file which holds all this data. So let me remove it. Let me remove all the body. Let me remove all the content which is inside body, and let's type the body again and have the h1 called UI monk, which is my channel name. And now if you see, if there is the request for slash, Laravel is handing over the view called welcome.blade.php. So in the welcome.blade.php we have the code welcome, sorry, UI monk. So likewise, if we want, instead of slash, I want index. So on page load, what happens is Laravel search for slash. So you will not get slash, but we know if we type index, Laravel will get into the routes, which is web.php, and the web.php will show the path to welcome.blade.php. Now if you click enter, you will see. Now you understand how Laravel looks for the pages. First Laravel will get into the routes, then the routes will show the location of the views. Fine, it's very clear. The very first thing what we are going to understand is we are going to create a controller. So I will show you what controller is. So right now what you're looking at here, so the index file, so the slash, which is the URL, is showing the path of the welcome file. So that is not the right case or the right way of presenting the code. So in this case we have to use the concept called controller. So let's create the controller first, and just by creating controller we are going to use model as well, and then we are going to use database migration. So let's create a database, which I have shown you. I have already created a database, so we have to modify the database file here, db underscore database. So if you see, this is the database name, just copy it and paste it. Whenever you write, whenever you edit the env file, what you have to do is you have to restart the server. Control C to stop the server, php artisan serve to restart the server. Fine, now your database is set. The second thing is we are going to create the model, the controller, and the migration. Control C again to quit the server, paste it. So what we are saying is php artisan make model. So the model name what you are presenting here will be the table name. So if I click enter, so there is some spelling mistake. Let me see what it is. The spelling here is make model, model. If you click enter, you will see created migration, create to do. So it says a table is created. So let's get into the YouTube database, YouTube underscore tut database, and in that right now the database won't be created. We will have to run the code called php artisan migrate. So before that, before the database table creation, there are two more steps which is created, which is model. The model file is created. So let me see where the model file is. Let me hide this. So on the app, on the models, we have Todolist php. So the model is created. So in case if you are wondering what is model, model will act as a database. So just make a note that model is a database table. Model is in database table, and to access this database table, what we have to do is we will be using the controller. So on the HTTP, we have a controller folder, and this is the controller. So don't worry about the function which is inside it. We'll start it from scratch, no issues. Fine. Now if you see, we got a model, we got a controller, and then what we are going to do is we are going to create, let me delete this because it will show already database is there. delete, drop. So it is empty now. So now our model is created, our control is created. Let's create a table. So for that we have to run a code called php artisan migrate. Click enter. Once it's done, it is going to create some tables. So let's check. If you see, these are the tables Laravel created it for ourselves. So we don't need these three. Click on drop. So we'll focus only on the to-do list and the migration table. So on the to-do list, if you see, we have id, created at, and updated at. We forgot to add one more thing, which is so the database. In the database, let me hide this so you won't get confused. On the migration, we have a table called, so here we are going to add a column which will be string and which will have the column name as name. So I think I have made a mistake. Let me delete these files and again run the php migrate. So it is because we have not edited the table name, sorry, column name. Delete, and we have to delete these as well. We have to run the model code again. On the models, let me delete this as well. Fine. Now if you get into this, we'll run the same create model code again, and again this time the migration would be created. So if you see, it is created here. So let's create the column name string, and the column name is going to be name, and let's delete the already populated datas. Check all, drop. Fine, I have cleared all the database table. Now if you see, again we have a controller which is created again. So let's start from scratch, no worries. And again we have a model. Fine, now let me close this. We have a model, we have a controller, and if you notice, I have edited this. Now we can run the php artisan migrate, and now the table would be created along with the supporting tables. So if you see, the to-do list is created with the column name, id, name, created at, and updated at. Fine. Now we are getting into the CRUD operation. The first thing what we are going to do is we are going to fetch all the data from the database and display it. At present we have no data in the database table, so let's insert some values. Let's give my name and let's give some date, some duplicate date, some duplicate date again. Let me add 3 more names again. So if you click on browse, you will see 4 data. Fine. Now what we are going to do is on page load. So let's run the server php artisan serve. By running this, your server will be running and you could see the file. Then the next thing is on the home page, I want to display what all the data are available on the table. I need to display it over here. So for that, as we already know, Laravel will look into the web.php for the slash. For the slash, what I need is I want to I want the Laravel to look at the controller. So the controller here is, so this is a controller. I want to look at the controller, and inside the controller I have a function called so show all data. So this is a function which we will be creating. So inside public function name. So if you know, let's return some value, hello. Click on refresh, you will see hello. So there is an error in Laravel 8. So for that, what you have to do is you have to use this path over here to avoid the error. Refresh it, you will get hello. Let me zoom in. How we are getting hello? So the concept is simple. Laravel will get into the web.php, and the web.php is pointing to the controller which we have created right now, and inside the controller there is a function called show all data, and inside the show all data this function is running and returning the world hello. So instead of hello, what I need is I want to display a HTML. So to display the HTML we have to use view, and we will give the file name called fetched data. So we have to create this HTML in the file structure. If you remember what is a file structure where Laravel finds the view, it is over here, new file which is blade.php. Why we are using blade.php, I'll let you know in a minute, don't worry. So let's use the bootstrap link. Fine. Now if you see here, if you click enter, you will see here it is because the Laravel will get into the web.php, and web.php is pointing to a function in the controller, and this function is returning the view, and this view is returning this HTML called here. Fine. Now let's add a table with class table, since we are using bootstrap, and here we are using table row, and we have td 3 tds. Let's have 4 tds. The first one is id, the second one is name, the third one is created at, the fourth one is action. So if I refresh, this is how it looks. Fine, that is working. Now we want to fetch all the data from the database and display it on the HTML. So with function, let's have a array name which is to do array. So this is the array name, and this array name will hold all the data from the table. So to fetch all the data from the table, we would be using the control model name. The model name is Todolist. Here is a model name which I have used, Todolist. Todolist facade. This is the double colon is called facade in Laravel. Facade all. So to access this array, what we can do is we have to run the for loop at the rate. So what is this at the rate for each? And for each. So this is the Laravel shortcuts. So to run the Laravel shortcut efficiently, we have used blade.php. So blade.php is a template engine, and this is the template literal. So Laravel understands the for at the rate for each, at the rate end for each with the help of .blade.php. Fine. Now let me echo it. So to echo in Laravel, this is how we use. We'll just show the ID. Refresh. Here we have to use dollar. Exception control minus to zoom out. So very silly mistakes. So this is the for each as dollar to do, and we have to pass this an ID. Then we should get the 1 2 3 4. Likewise, if you want names, you can have name and click refresh, you will get the name. So let's paste this inside the HTML. Just copy this ID name created at. So this is ID, this is name, and created underscore at. Let's refresh. Fine, that is working. Now we need two buttons in the action. So anchor tag, delete, edit. Fine. Now delete URL will have the ID, pass the ID. The same way, edit. Now if you click delete, delete with 1, so this is the ID we are passing. Edit, edit with 1, this is the ID we are passing. So right now we have completed the fetch, which is on the CRUD operation. We have completed the red. Now let's focus on delete. So if we click on delete, this URL is getting called. So Laravel will search for this URL. Just copy paste it here. This URL, this relevant function we are going to create is delete on the controller. So if you notice, we are passing the ID as well, so we can access the ID over here, and we have to use the ID here as well, slash. Now if you want to echo the ID, so return $ID. So if you see, 1 will be available. Likewise, if you click 3, you will see 3 will be available. Zoom in a bit. Fine. Now with this ID I want to delete it, so call the model, use the destroy function, and here we have to pass an array and the name of the column, which is ID, and the attribute we will be getting it from the URL is simply $ID. And after deleting, I want to redirect to slash, which means the RUD operation, semicolon, I believe. Let's delete this. Click delete. Call to undefined function destroy. The spelling is mistake, DSTROY. Let's try to delete the last name. Delete. So now if I try to delete the third one, actually redirect is not working, I believe, but the data is getting deleted. So this slash, here we should mention return. Refresh it. So let's try to delete this. So fine, we have created the delete functionality as well. Now let's focus on add, so which is create. So to create, we need a URL on the HTML. Let's have an anchor tag which we say create, and create to do list. Refresh it. So this URL, let's create the relevant function. it should go to the function called create in controller public function create, and let's return the view called let's create a view called create view. So where we are going to create it, just copy it and paste it and save it as create view dot blade dot php. So here if you click here, unexpected syntax semicolon, view not found. So if you see this file is created over here, we don't want this, just cut it or delete it from here. We want it to be created over here. Control N, paste, save. Let's check the location under views. Fine, it is working. Now let's get into the name dot blade dot php. And now it should work. So open this, and we don't need the table, we need a form. So let me show you. View to do list. So here it is going to be slash. If we click on view to do list, it will give the read operation. Now create. So here we have to add the following form. Let's add input type submit, placeholder, enter to list, and here the name is going to be simply the name, input type submit, refresh it. Fine. Now since this is a bootstrap, we can add the class form control, refresh it. Let's surround this inside a container dot container. Whatever is there inside the container, I want it to be center it horizontally. Now if you see, it's almost ready. Now when I click on submit, what should happen is the data should be stored on the database. So for that, let's create a URL. So to do submit, so this to do URL we have to create it on the web.php. So here the same function we are going to create on the controller. So here we have to insert it. To insert the data into the database, or to insert the data into the table, we have to use the model, create an object for the model, and the object name is going to be $to_do, and this to do has a property called name, and we have to store the name which we receive. So let me show you how to receive the input field value. To receive the input field value, we have to use the request object, request $req. So return. So if you click on the submit, you should get the input field value with the help of input function. Hello. Click on submit, you should get hello. Just pass the name, and if you try to submit hello, I'm Mishal, click on submit, you will get the name. So whatever you get in from the input field we have to pass it to the database, and then save the model with the help of function save. Now let's try. Now it's blank, so let's try to insert. Do Laravel program, click on submit. Let's see, do Laravel program is inserted. After this we want to redirect to the index page. Now let's create one more thing. Do JavaScript project, click on submit. It will be redirect to the index page, and these are the two tasks which we have created right now. So our create is also done. The only thing remaining is edit. So for when I click on edit, it is going to the URL called edit. We have to define the URL over here on the web.php. So with the help of edit we are passing the ID as well, if you notice, /ID, and it should trigger the function called edit in the controller. Public function called edit, and it will have ID. Now what we need is, if I click on edit, the data do Laravel program, I want to fetch it and display it over here. So how we are going to do it? So create call the model and use the find function, pass the ID, and it will return the row $row, and that row will have the name. So if I refresh, unexpected token return. Let's see, click on edit. Let's try to return this ID and check. It is not, it's a fast side. Let's refresh, try this. Let's display this ID and check. Six is coming, so that is perfect. So we are able to route the URL to the following controller. Now we don't want this ID, we want this row, and this row will have name column. Refresh it. Fine, that is working. Now we are able to fetch the name and we'll store it into a variable called name, and this name I want to pass it to the new page which will be similar to the create.php. So create.php, let me copy this, control and paste, save. So edit dot blade.php, edit underscore to do. So we have to pass this name to the view called return view, and the view name is this one with the value $name. Now let's try to access this name on the edit view. So let me comment these forms for temporary, and let's try to use the template title. Let's get into the create, sorry, there's a semicolon mistake again. I have pasted the semicolon over here. Refresh it, edit, name is undefined. So similarly we'll use the same thing and paste it here. Instead of all, it is going to be find, and we have to pass the ID to do array underscore name. So copy this, so now we can use it, and it is going to have name. Refresh it and let's check. So here the view name is different, that's the reason. We have created the view as something similar to edit to do. Refresh it, click on edit. The similar error where we are getting here, it should be a $ID because it's $ID here. Fine, do Laravel programming is available. We don't need this, we don't need this, we are working on this. And comment this. And pass this value into the attribute called value. And now if you notice, do Laravel programming is available. Likewise, do JavaScript program is also available. So when I click on submit, here it should go to the URL called edit underscore submit. So this edit underscore submit, we have to create it, and here we have to pass the ID as well. So why we are passing ID? So with the help of ID, we are going to update the name of the to do. Fine, if you notice, we have to pass the ID. This is how we pass the ID slash, and the column name is ID. So now if I get into the inspect, on the form action you should see the file name along with the ID, which is similar to the URL ID. Fine. And now if you notice, if you click on submit, this URL will be triggered, and this URL will call the function on the controller called public function, and here we will have the ID $ID. Now we have to fetch the row. To fetch the row, we already know we are going to use the modal colon find. So this code will give the row $row, and with this row, so let's say with this to do, we have a column name called name, and that name we want to update it by the request which we receive while submitting the form, and then we have to save it. So if you are not confused, I believe, so once I click on the submit button, this name value which will be stored. Now let's refresh it. Let's create a JavaScript videos, click on submit. I think again attempt to read property ID of null, so this ID is not available, it is saying. So let's go with the same step, not to hurry. back. So what is going to happen is when I click on submit, it is going to trigger the URL edit submit, and the edit submit will call the function edit submit, and this edit function is going to return the input field which you have entered over here. Click on submit, comma, so we have used ID properly. Let's try to access this ID. Control minus edit todo.plate.php. Attempt to read property ID of on null. So this is similar error. What happens is we have to use dot slash. Now let's try. Let's get into the home URL. Click on edit. If I click on submit, edit, then to do submit. Hard refresh. Click on submit. Fine, no issues. We'll start again. So what happens is when you click on edit, it is getting to the edit URL, and based on the function we are retrieving the name and the ID. So this is the name which we have retrieved working, and the ID /6/5 is also working. So once I click on submit, it should get into the URL called edit_submit. So let's see on the web.php edit_submit, we have the ID as well, and it will get into the function edit_submit. So this edit_submit, for temporary it should return the ID passed. Refresh it. So the problem what is really happening is if you click O, we'll use // on the form. The problem here is the mistake I have done is I have to pass this ID over here. I was passing it above // that was a mistake. Now if you click on submit, you should get let's call the to do submit. We don't have to call the to do submit, it is edit submit, and here it is going to be /. Refresh again, submit. Fine, 5 is available. That means we are able to get the ID from the request query string. Now let's try to get the name. Click on submit. Request is not available because we have not created the request object $req. Fine, these two values are available, but then we can simply save or you can update the value without any issue. Now let's try if there is no error. To Laravel project, CRUD project, click on submit. Fine, do Laravel CRUD project. So let's check. We're able to read. Let's try to add first, then we'll edit it, then we'll read it, then we'll delete it. Let's first create it. Create Python project. Click on submit. Create Python project is available. Now let's try to edit this. Create Python CRUD project. Submit this, and you're able to edit the inserted value to-do list. Now let's read this, so you can read this as well, and let's delete this. Delete. Fine, the project is done. Get the source code in the description. Thank you so much for listening.